Obesity is an epidemic that the United States has been experiencing for the past 50 years. In the New York Times article, Scientists Don't Agree on What Causes Obesity, but They Know What Doesn't, by author Julia Belluz, she illustrates that obesity is not a personal choice or a reflection of someone's willpower, but rather is influenced by a range of environmental, genetic, and socioeconomic factors. Some of the public, however, disagreed with the points made in her article and sent her letters. She compiled these letters into a new article called What Are the Causes of Obesity? While some parts of the letters reflect sound reasoning and are respectful, they also reflect poor argument and an emphasis on disagreement. Obesity is a volatile topic, and some people took offense to the article the letters were responding to, and it made them respond in an emotional way. I believe in the article, What Are the Causes of Obesity? There are examples of both productive and unproductive discourse. For example, letter writer, Stanley Kaczerski said, having practiced clinical dentistry and clinical nutrition for 40 years, I almost fell off my chair while reading this essay. I believe this shows combativeness because the aggressive and emotional statement of almost falling off his chair is really needless to help his argument and clearly is just showing how entrenched he is in the beliefs that he already has, which, if I was about to have discourse with this man, I would think this is going to be unproductive because he's already clearly emotional and is just making wild comments that are unnecessary. Another example by author Rachel Sands says, start questioning the assumptions of anyone using the term obesity epidemic. And the anti-obesity researchers that this author cites have an underlying assumption that being in a larger body is bad. Personally, I use the term obesity epidemic in the beginning of my essay, and the progressive obesity movement wants obesity to be defined as a chronic disease. So it doesn't really make sense for you wanting obesity to be called a disease and then also not wanting to be called an epidemic. It just creates a lot of needless division and just isn't a very smart argument. So I believe that exemplifies division because it accentuates differences amongst participants, which is a direct citation of our book, pages 23 and 24 of our textbook called Public Speaking and Democratic Participation by Jennifer Abbott. On the other hand, there are examples of productive discourse in the article. For example, Jamie Bussell states, a little more than a decade ago, nutrition standards were updated for the school meal programs and for the federal WIC nutrition programs. This is an example of empowerment because it is focused on community engagement and shows a way that people can help on a smaller community level for obesity. Another example is by letter writer Robert Klitzman, who says, enhanced education about nutrition and attention to corporate practices and advertising are vital as well. This is imagination because it takes a different approach to how we think about obesity. Rather than thinking, oh, I need to eat this, I need to eat that, think about, what are these corporations wanting me to do? Why are they fattening me up? Learn about that, and then don't do what the corporations want you to do. I believe that that's a good example of imagination. Furthermore, there are other examples of productive discourse, such as another excerpt by Rachel Sands, where she says that in the past 20 to 40 years to combat this epidemic, we have actually led to worse outcomes for the population, including fat shaming and weight stigma. I believe this reflects inclusivity because it is including groups of people who might be marginalized and obese and maybe don't have a lot of ethos on this topic and are being included because of the productive discourse that the author Rachel Sands is partaking in. Another example is by letter writer Susan Milrod, who says, I'm in my late 60s and have recently been diagnosed with lipedema, a chronic condition of excess fat that I've likely had since my teens. That's 50 years of mistakenly assuming that I struggle with obesity because of a flaw in my character, and I am a failure because I cannot exercise away the fat. This provides an example of productive public discourse through inclusivity of people who don't like connotative language. We don't know what's going on in their lives, and this could be a great example of something to think about. To conclude, obesity is an issue that should be solved, but as many people are obese in this country, it should not be done in an unproductive and malicious way. The article, What Are the Causes of Obesity?, shows examples of both productive and unproductive discourse. In order to improve obesity nationwide, productive discourse must be used to create an efficient method of decreasing obesity.